turning citizens into suspects since 2001. The Kate Daly Show starts now.
The truth hurts, doesn't it, Habsburg? Oh, sure. Maybe not as much as jumping on a bicycle with a seat missing, but it hurts.
All right, welcome back. Kate Daly Show. And I always like a lot of points of view on things. I'm always apt to listen and want to hear more. I'm always on a quest for the truth. That's really why I even do this show. I never wanted a career in radio, actually. I really didn't. This was not going to be my thing. And I found myself in this position. And then, of course, I wanted to find out where is the truth. And I definitely am not afraid to open my mind up to all kinds of things and wonder about them and ask questions about them. And I hope you do too. And if you're listening to my show, you probably are here because of that. And so this hour, I'm going to go a lot of places in this hour. And I want to start with Candace Owens. Okay. Now I'm going to play a clip about her talking about the moon landing, but I'm not going to be talking about the moon landing in this hour as much as I want you to hear her thought process on why she was doubting it. I want you to hear that. It's about a 3-minute clip. Here we go. Here's Candace Owens.
How dare she question the moon landing? And I was like, that's weird. And then last year I went on Bill Maher. I actually had a great time on his show. But when I first began speaking with him on his podcast, he instantly went in on this moon landing tweet as if this was some philosophy that I had carried with me to college campuses and talked about on my podcast. I never done that. But he needed me to assert on his show that the moon landing was real and that it was not a hoax. Take a listen to a brief clip from that.
Okay, I'm going to start again.
Look at that. It's relevant. It's relevant. I need you right now. You have a platform to assert that the moon landing took place, or else nothing else that you say is relevant. That's a bit odd to me. I didn't take the bait on it. I mean, I wasn't alive in 1969. And like I said, it's just not of import. So why was this something that him and his producers felt that they had to front load, that they needed me to assert this to my audience about the moon landing? You would think that that would just not be a priority for them. Well, guess what? Then, after having that conversation, I read that book, Chaos, that I keep telling you every single human being needs to read. And of course, Chaos is about the Manson murders. It is about the CIA. You will read it with your jaw on the floor. You will also be terrified as you're reading it, because if you do not believe that your government has a capacity for evil, and if you do not believe that your government has a capacity to lie on a really large scale, that book will knock some sense into you. And the Manson murders happened in 1969. What you garner from that book, among very many other things, is the fact that the government was interested in mass psychosis. What can we do? Can we create an event that will then create a mass psychosis among the population that will basically, really, ultimately get citizens to comply, to simply comply? And with the Manson murders, you had this horrific murder that happened in Hollywood to this beautiful actress, allegedly. And now we know the CIA was involved in every step of the way, even involved in the trial, even involved in the convictions. Charles Manson was a Fed. He was an asset. And the purpose, it seems, was simply to get people to stop living the hippie dream. And it worked. The hippies' days ended virtually overnight. And of course, they realized that the media, they needed to have the media following every aspect of the trial. They needed to have the people almost performative that were in Charles Manson's family. They needed all of that. The media could get people to react as you're reading your newspaper about the horrors of this murder. What are you going to do? You're going to go buy a lock. You're not going to become a hippie. That's for sure. You're not going to be protesting against war. That's for sure. You're going to get real serious because they just used the media to mass terrorize you into compliance. And so after I read this book and learned what the CIA was up to, after I learned about drugging people with LSD, after I learned about how they utilized troops and how they experimented on troops, and I learned about MK Ultra, I can now tell you I am at a 0% belief in the moon landings in 1969. If you think that I'm going to believe that they were up to all of this in 1969 regarding the Manson murders and the CIA and experimented with mass psychosis, but at the same time they were totally legit about the moon landings, no way.
Yeah. Okay. I like Candace. I think Candace is really being honest, to tell you the truth. And it's not an easy space to be in. The one thing I get a lot of heat about is when I talk about the moon landing and I talk about the specifics that could not have happened in 1969, because people's idea of Americana is wrapped in the idea of us landing on the moon, this achievement. I mean, at the same time, we could have even said, we're going to go down to the bottom of the sea, and everybody would have been wearing, I don't know, gills around their head and excited about going down to the bottom of the sea. And that was going to be our thing that made us America, right? It's kind of interesting that the moon landing was Americana. And people look in the past at it as Americana. It's very strange to me because I'm like, why are we so married to this idea that if we didn't land on the moon, well, then I'm deprived of my whole life, my whole childhood, because everything was built on the dream of the moon. It was very, very marketed to us at the time because we were in a space where we didn't want to see anything else go up because there had been so many accidents, and they had to market it to us. Now the marketing is laid out in that new film with Tatum Channing. So that's marketed to us, and they didn't tell the whole story though. At the very, very end, they kind of went into this. Yeah, we provided a simulation, but at the end, you saw what you saw. And so I wasn't going to talk about the moon. I don't want to spend a lot of time there because I want to talk about something else actually. But I do appreciate the fact that she laid out why she would then do homework and research moving forward and want to know more about what's really going on. When the government says ABC, then you know it's not that. So I have gotten to that point too, where you read so much, you're doing so much research that you can't. I don't know how people ever believe the government at this point. And that wasn't a conclusion I wanted to come to, by the way. When I launched into over 35,000 hours of research, it wasn't because I wanted to come to that conclusion. I would love it if we felt like in America we had a government on our side. I'd love it, but we don't. And so that's going to lead me to talking about a couple of things that are kind of, I would say, a little dicey because I want to have a very analytical discussion about it where we're looking at big picture. I want to talk about the Middle East for a moment. And it's hard to do this in this climate because if I dare talk about the Middle East, if I am not pro, right, something, then I must be anti-Semitic or I must be this or I must be that. I'm not. Get yourself out of the pro-anti thing. Get yourself out of the emotion of it. Get yourself out of all of that and just try and look at it in a very pragmatic way, in a very analytical way. I really want to take a look at our past and where we're going because it's going to play a big part in our future right now. And I appreciate Candace's candor about things because she's coming to a lot of the same conclusions that I came to. And that is when you start to do homework, you start realizing there's a much bigger project or plan going on. So you guys all remember that I was picking up my daughter at the airport when and I was actually down in Vegas in 2017 when the shooting happened from the Mandalay Bay, right? And everybody said Stephen Paddock did it. He did it from the certain floor. And I remember so I was down there, I left to go pick her up. And when I was on the freeway coming home, right smack in front of the Mandalay Bay, on the freeway was shut down, closed, and we were stuck on the freeway for hours and hours. Okay. And I decided, okay, I mean, I'd been reporting on so many things up to that point, 2017. So I decided to listen to the police scanner. I wanted to listen to the police scanner so that I could get a good idea of what was going on. I wanted to see if there were any anomalies, of course, because of what I do for a living. And figured that something that had helicopters and that had the freeway shut down in Vegas was probably going to become national news. So I tuned into the police scanner. And the things that I heard were shots fired at Excalibur, shots fired at New York, shots fired here, shots fired there. I mean, lots of places. It wasn't Stephen Paddock at the Mandalay Bay, per se. It was the concert, but it was also many, many, many other places. Okay. And I thought, wow, there's like a huge thing going on all the way up and down the strip, causing a lot of havoc and a lot of confusion on the scanner with the cops going, well, what do you mean there's shots fired there and here and here and there? And they were running all over the place and trying to figure out what was going on. So whatever it was behind that wanted to have a lot of chaos and had a lot of people on the ground, and it wasn't just Stephen Paddock. Okay. And so I knew that coming back home to report on it, I thought, wow, that was a totally different story. When I woke up the next morning, it was only Stephen Paddock, and it was only the Mandalay Bay, and it was only the concert on the ground. And people on the ground had said there were people in black outfits, head to toe, on the ground that were shooting at them. So I thought, okay, something's really going on here. So that was really, really strange. But how do you verify all that, right? I mean, unless I don't know how you verify that. But a lot of people that tried to speak out about it ended up dead. So there was a lot of that going on afterwards. But you knew something was very strange about it, and that it looked like Stephen Paddock was the patsy. At the same time, word on the street was that MBS, who runs Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, we'll just call him MBS for the sake of this conversation, was there, and he was actually meeting with Trump. And that there was a meeting going on, and some say it was at the Tropicana, some say it was at Mandalay Bay. But there are some photos of what looks like him being escorted out by a whole bunch of security. He's just wearing kind of normal clothes, kind of fits in, but is walking out, and that there was this big meeting. And there was an occurrence in the Middle East right after this, about a month after the October 2017, I think it was October 1st, the Las Vegas shooting, that there was this. So the meeting happens on the same night, and that there might have been a false flag within a false flag, because there could have been an attempt on his life, and that the chaos that was ensuing, there was just a whole lot of action going on the ground. So some people wonder if it was a false flag inside of a false flag, inside of a false flag even, could have been, that there was a lot more to this, and that it had more to do with him. He had just become the leader of Saudi Arabia. Barely, like just on the books, had just become that. And there was an occurrence a month after the Las Vegas thing that was really interesting. So he goes back home, he meets with Trump in Vegas, goes back, that's word on the street, goes back home. And a month later, he invites not all, I shouldn't say that, many of the kings, many of the people that were running things in the Middle East to a meeting. I will come right back. There's a lot more to this. We'll come right back. Kate Daly Show, KateDalyRadio.com.
There you go.
Attention homeowners, is your air conditioner ready for summer? Schedule a professional tune-up with Air Care Professional